Hi everyone, and welcome to Creatio's Product Battle, where I'm your host, Alex Petrenko, Product Evangelist with Creatio. And today I'm very glad to have David Lasher with Keen 360 to be my battle opponent. Hi David, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Alex.
All right, perfect. So I would like to first of all thank all of the viewers and attendees for joining this product battle. I would like to also remind you that on your screens, on the broadcast page, in the bottom of the screen, you have the option to vote for one of the two products that are actually being compared during this products battle. You also have an option to leave your feedback, ask questions, and add any comments in the chat area. And today, we're actually going to be comparing a very interesting and very cool topic for us, which is going to be different approaches to automation in two very well-known products, one of them being Creatio and the other one actually being Salesforce. And David, today you're going to be representing Salesforce, is that right?
That's right. I know Creatio, but I also know Salesforce, and looking forward to the compare and contrast.
All right, perfect. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a very interesting battle ahead of us. And again, we really want to know what you guys think. What is the product that first of all stands out compared to the other one, specific to this topic? Tell us, vote, leave your comments, and share any feedback around the functionality that you see. So I'm going to kick off this product battle with probably just a quick description of how do we at Creatio approach such topic as automation, right? What are the frameworks that we follow? And we're going to jump into the product demonstration itself. Now, I'm pretty sure that those who are familiar with Creatio a little bit, who are very well familiar with Creatio and yourself, including, we all know that Creatio follows two major frameworks for automation, which are dynamic case management, or DCM, and as well business process management, or BPM approaches, right? And of course, these two major, widely recognized frameworks by Gartner and Forrester are kind of the two pillars of actually automating different kinds of processes, different kinds of workloads. Let's put it this way, where the DCM is usually used in order to control less structured, more chaotic, more agile environments, and BPM is actually used for more structured and sequential steps in those workflows, right? And obviously, what we wanted to do is to actually compare how the two vendors, Creatio and Salesforce, follow these approaches. What are the options that are being offered by the two vendors when it gets to different ways of running these automations? So what I'm going to do right now, we're going to jump right into the product. I'm going to ask our product broadcast managers to start sharing my screen, just so that we can talk a little bit about the dynamic case management functionality in Creatio. And this is something that we've kind of briefly touched upon when we were in a previous product battle. And again, those of you who are familiar with Creatio know very well that within our platform, we have the ability of setting up the dynamic case management framework around pretty much any business objects of the application, whether this will be an opportunity, whether this will be a contact and account, which we need to define during the life cycles of our customers and clients, or whether those are just different types of dynamic cases that we would like to run. So basically what I have right here is actually the area to set up the cases for the opportunity section. Just wanted to remind that based on any lookup value field, we can actually define different types of dynamic cases that are going to be running. And this is actually provided by us in order to support different selling processes, different channel of sales, or any kind of differentiation between different workflows that might be running in the application, right? And of course, in this case, we can say that when we talk about a major dynamic case management settings, there are a few things that we would like to control, that we would like to configure, right? In this case, we first of all talk about the high level differentiation and definition of the stages in this life cycle, stages in this workflow, as we can call it, right? Where we actually would like to specify what are the major checkpoints or milestones that the user is going to be going through, right? What are the possible transitions to and from this milestone, from this stage, right? How we're going to be providing the transition between those different stages, right? So have a little bit more of control over how the user is going to be going from one step to another. And of course, if we would like to provide any kind of color coding, if we would like to provide any restrictions for different types of users of moving between the stages, right? And the idea here is, even though the dynamic case management framework is considered to be a tool, even just for the power users, for the supervisors, for the managers, right, we still want to provide a flexibility over how to define the transition between those multiple steps and milestones, right? And of course, the same kind of way of managing these are as well available when it gets to controlling specific steps within those milestones, right? Since we can use different types of actions, right? Those are seamlessly designed in a very similar fashion that we would be doing that in our business process management engine. And yet again, we have certain control over how exactly the user is going to be transitioning between those steps, right? If the step should be executed or displayed for the user in the very beginning of the stage, if it should be actually displayed after the previous step was completed, if it was actually marked as completed by the end user, and even such things as whether this should be a required step or optional, and if we should have any kind of base conditional transition between the step to the next stage, right? So all of this is, again, very flexible yet very simple to configure tool for the power users, for the business analysts, citizen developers, and even classic developers, to create simple workflows where, again, we don't have a clear understanding or clear definition of the sequence of the steps, right? We need to provide more of a framework of actions for our users to complete, and then they have a little bit more of the flexibility over deciding which step to actually complete, which ones to mark off, leave notes, and then move to the next stage, right? And of course, this can be extended. We as well have control over providing different types of actions, whether we would like to run certain approvals, changing the access rights within this dynamic case execution, opening up some edit pages to create or modify existing records, and even sending emails and running sub processes, which we will be getting into a little bit further down the road. But at this point, I would like to pass the floor to David Basher and actually switch to his screen as well to have a look at what our competitor Salesforce.com has to offer in this regard. David, over to you.
Yeah, Alex. So for what I call, well, this is an opportunity that we're looking at. So we're a sales user looking at a particular opportunity. For the Salesforce.com users out there, or community out there, this is a trial instance, as you can see in the upper right, which means it's the professional edition. So here's the opportunity. It's got its stages. I want to point out that for each stage, we have some fields here. We'll be seeing how they're configured. And we get some guidance here. And then all the other activity or functionality is around the life cycle here. Mm-hmm. So Alex, shall I step in to show how this is the life cycle or path? This is called a path in Salesforce.com lingo.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. I have that teed up for you. Oh, before that, I do want to show the page wizard. We're not here configuring pages, but for interested parties out there, this is the palette or page on which you pull together and build a Salesforce page. You can see it's the opportunity management, and you take these tiles and you pull them from the left and onto the page. All right, so that's setting up the page. That's where, and then this right here is very visually different, right? And this is where we configure the path that the opportunity goes through in Salesforce language. And so it's highlighted with the first stage in the path or in the cycle. And you can see the different stages here. Alex, can I make a few comments about this? Just orient people to what they're looking at here.
Sure, please.
Okay.
I do have a few questions. I do have a few comments of my own, but as a guest, you go first.
I'm shocked, Alex. I'm shocked. So just to orient folks as to what's available to you in Salesforce for creating this path, for every stage, and I'm on the first stage qualification, you have the opportunity to add the fields that I'm going to click back that show up right here, right? So let me show it. And it works just like you would expect. There's a little widget and you pick a field, and I picked, it's probably a Boolean, discovery completed, save it, and it's added. And down in the bottom right, I can save it and it automatically shows up, the change shows up on the page. So that's it. And the stages, Alex, we're not going to show it, but they come from in Creatio language, a lookup, in Salesforce language, a pick list. Couldn't be more straightforward, right? Pick lists, lookups, they work the same in both platforms. I wanted to point out, here's the guidance, right? So I'll click on the next one, needs analysis, right? So you can see that there's a WYSIWYG editor here for giving some guidance to your users. That's basically it for putting together your path. You can have multiple paths for your organization. There's some asterisks on that, but absolutely multiple tasks. And I just want to make one comment about this, Alex, before I turn back to you. From my perspective, everybody, this is a matter of style and taste will differ from person to person and org to org. But this seems like a little bit of a gimmick to me. From our Keen 360 perspective, coaching, training should be ongoing in pipeline cadences coming from sales managers and directors. And this doesn't seem real helpful. It seems like there could be a better use of this space. So just an editorial there. Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually have a few comments of my own, right? So definitely having like a little, what seems to be, like an HTML kind of editing space and area, just to leave a few comments, a few hints, could be helpful for certain types of users, right? But this is definitely not a full replacement of the specific actions that could be completed under specific stages, under specific, milestones of the opportunity, because it really lacks the control over what were the specific actions that were suggested, right? What were the actions that were then later on completed by the user, and which ones were disregarded because they were not relevant at that stage, right? So you cannot really have then later on an understanding and kind of an analysis point towards what are the most common completed steps, right? If there is actually a sequence between them, right? If we can then later on take this knowledge and we can transform it from a GCM approach towards a BPM approach, right? Which I will get into. But also what is a little bit surprising to me in this case is also the fact that under the same kind of, well, it's called a path setting, right? For Salesforce, they are including such functionality as, display or update of the fields, which is almost like a little of a, business process and a little bit of a business rule configuration. right? So for me, it's just like a very different way of approaching the configuration, right? And kind of brings you to the point that in Salesforce, it looks like you have to be aware of all of the different types of configuration, right? And follow those in very different areas of the application. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree that the question is not whether you can get X done, whatever X may be, with the two platforms. They're both very capable platforms, and you're going to be able to get X done. The question is, how do you go about getting X done, and how maintainable is it going to be as well? And I would also add a little bit more debatably, perhaps, can you rely more on business analysts, or do you need a little bit more system administration and technical skills?
Mm-hmm.
And I would wholeheartedly 100% agree, and I don't know how anybody could disagree, that the consolidated tool that you have with DCM, Dynamic Case Manager within Creatio, allows you to work both on the stages of your opportunity lifecycle. I'll use the non-platform, the platform agnostic language, right? So we'll show you in a moment, as we previewed this to you, Alex. In a moment, I'll show you that you have to combine this tool here for paths with either process builder. It's really process builder. And what we'll get to next, right, in a few minutes, Alex, we'll get to flows in a moment. But for those who aren't familiar with Salesforce, let me give just a little bit of context, Alex. So Salesforce has been adding automations on their platform for years. Salesforce was born as a transactional database to support sales-oriented, initially sales-oriented processes only, right? So it's fundamentally a transactional database application with analytics and great capabilities for adding, from Apex Exchange, other capabilities. But for automation, which is what we're talking about here today, right, Alex? And focus today, Salesforce has been adding onto its base, and so the first thing that the tool that is being deprecated is something called workflow rules, and because it's being deprecated, we're not going to be showing it, right?
Yep. So basically, what you're saying is that in Salesforce, there's currently many different tools or frameworks that would be used in order to achieve the same thing, like depending on the version, depending on the release, depending on the what you're trying to achieve.
So to achieve what you can achieve from the DCM manager within Creatio, right? Plus the workflow designer. Let's combine those two tools, right? In Salesforce, there's the deprecated workflow rules. It's going away. There's this process designer. There is flow designer, and there are different kinds of flows. There is a separate tool for approvals. Okay, approvals are different, and we already saw that you set up your path a little bit differently. So I think it's fair to say there's a handful of tools that you use to do what you can do with the two tools in Creatio. I think that's a very fair statement.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there, again, just like what we discussed in the very beginning, right? You can achieve a lot of similar things with the two tools and two applications. But the question is, how would you achieve that? How simple it is to do that, right? Because even on this screen that you're sharing right now, I understand that this is not connected towards execution of certain tasks and actions connected to one specific stage in the life cycle, right? This is more of a kind of a diagram based if-then conditioning of steps, similar to what you would call a business rule configuration.
Yeah, you can get it to trigger in different ways, but fundamentally, yes, right? And so shall I show it? Just to
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Please.
So again, this is flows is where Salesforce is going, right? And that's where the investment is. And we even looked at the summer release, and you can see the steps forward. But this is very much a standard, one of the standard tools. And what this does is it provides you linear, if-then kind of language for a given object. We're looking at opportunity here to say, what I think of this as, Alex, we leave aside all the process builder. I, this is a trigger mechanism, okay, based on conditions, right? Um, and you define your conditions. I'll give you a quick look, right? And if this condition does not evaluate to true, it drops to the next condition and so on until it ends, right? So very linear if then, right? And you can see a big opportunity one, a medium, if no, medium, like small, right? And the way it works is, double click. If you can see over here, it's anybody familiar with low code tools, they all work about like this, right? So this one is saying, if execute this when the conditions are met, then I set my conditions, and it's the normal kind of, I choose the object opportunity in the field amount, and I say if it's greater than or equal to, I pick a currency field. Great. So if the opportunity amount is greater than $1 million, that's one of my two conditions. The other is, I could have made other choices, but I just said, if opportunity one flag, the Boolean evaluates to true, boom, both the conditions are met, right? The and so this would evaluate to true. So that's the condition. And then let's look at what you can do. And it's, there's a lot that you can trigger here, right? So let's cancel what I opened. And then we'll take a look at, and the types of actions, they can be at the moment, immediate, or you can schedule them to be later, right? But we'll only look, let me just show you that for this demo, I put together two, and I'll show you the list. So I had, sorry, my mouse, that was a mouse lag problem. So what I have here is I said, okay, if it evaluates to true, I want to create the contract. It might look like, it's probably miniature font. So, create a new record, create the contract, create an order. You can fire that off, right? Send an email alert. I open it up. I had pre-configured my email alert, and Alex, I got to say, there's not much. It's what you would expect for creating an alert, right? The different fields. So not really worth. There's no compare and contrast that's of interest, but that's it. Choose your object, decide your conditions, true, false, linear, and you can fire off actions. Let me just show you the actions available. This should be in a drop down. And it might be hard, but it's the basics, right? And the basics are good. Creating new records and sending alerts, calling another flow that we're going to be looking at, right? Which is more directly analogous to Process Designer in Creatio. Send a custom notification. Quip is a collaborative document management application that you can add on. So that's it, Alex. I think people should get what this does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just wanted to reiterate, my personal opinion on this tool. Yes, it looks like there is some functionality that this can achieve, right? There's definitely some thought that was put into it, but if you kind of look at it from, again, standardized or standard frameworks, right, that you would actually be following, or those that are recognized by, let's say, analysts, right, this is just something different, right? This is something that you would be maybe, drafting out in a Visio to kind of show what would be the steps that you'll be completing, right, on based on if then. But this is not a true business, this is not a true process builder, because this is not a BPMN based process, right? This is not, definitely not a DCM kind of approach in automation, right? Because this is really not pointing out towards the defining of the stages, and then under the stages you have some specific actions that are being completed. So this is just a different, very different way of doing things, right? And of course, as you know, what we're trying to achieve in our case is to really simplify and make it easy for the business analysts, citizen developers, administrators to manage their environments, right? And what I would like to actually do now is kind of, flip back to my screen again and just
Alex?
Yeah.
Just one clarification, right? Which is, I agree with most everything, but this, even though this is called Process Builder as a tool, I think it's a misnomer. Again, I would just emphasize that this is more a trigger agent within the application, and then you combine it with other tools. Okay, a trigger agent.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the same case, and this is again just one of those quotes that I wanted to kind of bring up when we talk about the process automation, right? So if we flip back to my screen, and again, we're going to be kind of continuing this discussion over what we offer in different areas, right? Or what are the different ways of automation that we offer, right? So if we first of all talked about dynamic case management as one of the frameworks for agile, unstructured, chaotic processes or workflows, right? We as well say that this is actually a great way for any organization to start rethinking or the rediscovery of their processes, whether those are going to be external or internal or core processes. The reason for that is, again, just like I mentioned, because when you have the ability to configure all of those little steps under one specific stage, right, you can first of all see what are the steps that are in fact completed, what are the steps that are being ignored, what are the next actions that are completed when you go through the analysis step, right? And very often what our customers do is that they draft out these actions or these tasks that are being completed under each stage, right? If they see that they need to be repositioned, relocated amongst the stages, they can easily do that. If they need to change the whole kind of position of the milestone with all of the steps, they can easily drag and drop them together as well, right? But what they do in the end is that if they understand that these three steps that we have under one specific stage are in fact more sequential and they actually have an order in their completion, they actually can then replace those steps with a business process, right? Because in our case, the two tools that we are talking about are actually not disconnected, right? Those are the tools that are actually working together in synergy, right? And they provide a seamless execution for the end user, right? And this is where we can actually now jump into the discussion around the business processes as themselves and on its own, because this is a core capability. This is one of the foundational pillars of our platform, of our application, because it not only just sits in our CRM suite, but this is actually the core of the platform itself for the standalone, low-code platform that we offer as a separate product, right? And in this case, of course, what we talk about is also different kinds and different ways of triggering these processes, right? So we don't differentiate a flow like in Salesforce or a process builder, which is a triggering tool. What we say is that within one business process management engine and diagram, you have different ways of triggering those processes. A simple start to base the execution on the user decision or as part of a sub process, right? A message for, to subscribe to certain events and messages being broadcasted within the application or even externally, right? Or even a start timer to base off the execution on a scheduled basis, right? Or as like in this case, it's a signal start that allows us to actually base off the execution on any kind of data events. If the record was modified, if there was a record added or deleted, right? The idea here is that within one tool, the end users are provided with a powerful instrument to actually kick off and configure those different kinds of processes based on their need, based on their purpose, based on their type, right? And of course, from there, we're talking about the execution of the business process on its own, right? Where we, again, differentiate different types of actions that could be executed, right? And we can actually say that we can easily drag out, as you can see, an item from a step that has been already designed, right? And we can continue the configuration of this step. So on the right-hand side, you will actually see that the settings panel for a simple task is absolutely the same as it was on the dynamic case management engine, right? Because this configuration should be exactly the same, because it kind of covers the same area of functionality but in different areas, right? And the execution for the end user should be as well the same. And at any moment, if I wanted to change the type of this task, I can actually easily do that, right? And I can choose between different user engaging elements, such as running user dialogues to ask the user about the to make a decision on the process. If it's a yes or no, what should be the next step, right? So again, open an edit page, work with some UIs that are going to be generated and existent only within the process execution without any data model standing behind it as a basis for it. Send out emails, or again, running approvals. And I know that approvals are kind of a dodgy question when it gets to Salesforce, so we're going to get back to it a little bit later in the end, right? And besides just having the options to choose between these user engaging elements, obviously we have the ability to use system actions, and those are, again, running completely behind the scenes, right? Those are that do not involve the user into the execution of those steps. And this is covering very different types of actions, whether we're talking about the basic CRUD for creating, reading, updating, deleting data on both one-off basis or through a selection on a group record basis, right? Whether this is going to be formula calculation, data transformations, changing the access rights, calling web services, which is very important in our world when we need to bridge the gap between multiple applications and be able to dynamically execute the integrations between those multiple tools that are existent in the infrastructures of our customers. And even running data prediction with the help of our machine learning models, right? And of course, many other ones that can be a little bit more technical, right? But still extend the capability of just the standard kind of selection of elements. So probably where I'm going with this, right, is the fact that our process engine and BPM functionality is based on the business process management notation version 2.0, which is one of the most common notations for process management out there, right? It is very popular. A lot of business analysts follow it, and it is kind of one of the universal languages for tech people and business analysts to talk to each other, right? To describe the organizational processes, to describe any kind of processes that the organization or a application is following. And definitely through the combination of user engaging and system actions, right, through this very simple diagram that you can build together in the application, right, without any design development, just with simple drag and drop, point and click kind of style of configuration, we are able to design very powerful business processes that will reduce the amount of the user actions, right? Reduce the unnecessary workload on the user, but only will require him or her to make a crucial decision within the process execution, right? So only involve them when they are absolutely 100% needed to be involved, right? And of course, even though in this specific example, I was embedding this business process as part of our opportunity lifecycle, right? Just as an example, in our case, we can say that there are dozens and many more processes that can be designed and available in the process library that you can later on execute as well, right? That can be disconnected from a specific lifecycle, that can be disconnected from a business object, but only run integrations between Creatio and a third-party application. And again, we're going to get back to this a little bit later, because I do want to spend a little bit of time on the on the analytics side. But if we were kind of comparing, again, first of all, the process builder to our process builder. Definitely, those are not the same thing. Again, in my maybe biased, but again, personal opinion, the tool in Creatio is a lot more powerful because it gives more options, it gives more capability, more types of actions that could be used within one single tool for different purposes. But again, at this point, David, let's probably switch to your screen, right? And let's see what does Salesforce has to offer as another way of running automation in their system, in their platform.
Yep. And can you confirm? I'm having a video feed issue. Can you confirm that you can see the Salesforce?
Yeah, I can see your screen. So let's carry on. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I want to make you made a point that would be easily missed, which is the role of the fact that Creatio was born as a business process platform, adhering to an industry set of standards, BPMN, which is at level 2.x at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what is nice about Creatio is that everything that you need to automate your flows really is there right in front of you in the one palette. And it is very business process oriented, even when it's doing database work, right? And that's the way Creatio was born. And as we've emphasized, it's not that with the Salesforce platform that we're looking at here, you can't get to where you need to be. It's just that it's going to be different. And let me give a thumbnail of the history of what we're looking at here. This is flows. This, I don't know this to be true, but this I know that this is the tool within Salesforce that the Salesforce organization is making its investments in, right? This is where they are taking their workflow automation. But I think it's indisputable that at this point in time, the amount of work that you can do here, the set of widgets and what they can do that's available to you is a subset of what we were looking at in Creatio. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's A. I mean, you can get where you need to be, but an example is that I can't show it here because of the instance I'm using, but the summer 2020 release for Flow, the enhancements we're getting from the just two kinds of flows that you could create in the past. I'm just going to call it screen pops, right? Create a screen for interacting with the user. That's it. The screen pop is good in Salesforce, quite good. And what you were talking about, Alex, the processes running in the background, they call them auto launched or something in Salesforce terms, right? But this is what you've got. And a difference on the palette, I mean, you've got your elements over here that you pull over. And a difference is that this is Salesforce proprietary, right? The thing that I like about adhering to an industry standard is that it's an industry standard that Creatio as vendor will be shooting towards, as opposed to proprietary has the risks of proprietary, right? Changing out, right? We see that with Google all the time. I will say nothing ill of Salesforce, but Google is notorious for making a switch, right? If in their opinion, that is what they want to do. Let me show you what maybe how about get records, Alex? What would you like to look at? Taking an action, like sending an email or the gate, anything you'd like me to open here?
Sure. Well, I understand here that the interactions are just basically some types of steps that could be completed. So maybe we can discover that because again, just based on the list of the elements that could be used here, I see that the selection is pretty limited, right? And I'm curious whether this is just based on the complexity or functionality spread of this tool, or maybe there are just very hidden settings that you could use when setting up a flow in Salesforce.
Well, if there are hidden settings, I haven't found them yet. Okay.
Which again speaks to the usability, speaks to the tool adoption for the for the professionals that are going to be using it, which is again a quite important, quite curious topic to discover, to cover.
Yeah, I'd say, look, let me open up one of these. Get records. Let me. My laggy mouse. Let me double click now. There we go. I mean, so this is what this is how you're configuring that element. And, um, you know, you can see a little bit of a heritage of tech. I mean, calling it what I would call a unique code, you know,
Mm-hmm.
an API name, right? Okay. But you know, you pick your object from all the objects that are in the database. That's standard and very analogous to how you pick what you're working on. You define your conditions for the sharp-eyed here. You can see that demo purposes. I just did my practice. I said the ID field, and I got the ID for one record just to make sure things could run. But adding conditions works just as you would expect with the operators and values. So, and then sorting doesn't really matter. Alex, you know, is it just one record or all records? And so there are collections that you can loop through. So at least that capability is in here. Unless you have questions on this, I'm going to cancel this, Alex.
No, this is actually a very interesting, again, kind of topic to discuss, right? Because eventually, and let me just quickly describe this for some of our audiences, right? Eventually, what the screen was talking to is how do you set up the filtering conditions of reading the data on one specific opportunity, right? Or dynamically route through the business process. And what caught my eye is that the filtering module there is very specific to this piece of functionality, right? Whilst, and again, if we kind of flip back to my screen right here for just 1 second, right? If we look at the same element that we have in this process that I'm looking at, right? The ways that we're reading through the data and that we're actually setting up the filtering conditions for the read data elements is actually the same that we're using in our filtration module around everywhere else in the system, right? This is consistent functionality that is being reused in different areas of Creatio. Because again, our goal is to not only provide simple functionality, but actually reuse it in all of the areas of the application so that the users don't have to learn how to use different modules or different tools or different functionality pieces in different areas of the application, right? Simply because they shouldn't. It should be very simple, it should be intuitive, and once you learn how to do one thing in one place, you should be able to transform the knowledge. You should be able to actually, then reuse that knowledge in a different area of the application, right? And again, of course, we do have the same kind of ability to use different types of data reading, right? If we're going to be reading one record, if we're going to be reading, a selection, calculating a function, or just reading a number of records in a selection. So all of that is, again, available within Creatio, right? And probably even more, right? Because we did see that there are certain gateways in Salesforce. Of course, the same kind of settings is available in our process management engine. Again, provided and supported by BPM and 2.0, for running exclusive gateways and workflows, running parallel gateways or inclusive or event-based gateways, right? So again, the idea here is not to try to invent the wheel, as they call it, right, and try to come up with something new, something that the users might or might not like, but actually to follow the standards, follow the best practices in what has been defined by the analysts, right? What has been defined by the majority of people, right? And in this case, again, I'm talking to the fact that we are following, again, the DCM framework. We're following the BPM framework, which allows us to kind of, combine different approaches, and cover 100% of different ways of automating and running the automation for our customers, for our partners. But one more thing that I wanted to cover briefly upon is, again, the fact that not only do we have all of this great functionality to run and to configure the executable processes, but we as well, first of all, offer a free product that is available as part of our website that is called Studio Free, that is designed specifically to run the process description processes, to collaborate with your teams in order to outline and model those processes that can be then easily converted and imported into Creatio's executable processes without any additional effort, right? And of course, after the processes have been described, automated, and are now executed, you can run a full cycle of the analysis, with the help of our process log, with the help of actually running any kind of additional overview of what is actually happening in your application. Because within our application, obviously, it is possible to, have the full process log tracked through diagram view of the process execution, right? To look at all of the process elements that have been launched and have been completed, right? To look at some even data traces to see what data was kind of brought into the element, what was the end result of that element execution, right? So again, the process management engine is one of the great focuses for our company to continuously deliver the best and best of breed functionality for process management, not just for our CRM customers and CRM world, but for any customer, any organization that needs to automate any kind of business applications, mundane daily routines and data entry, either in one application or across multiple applications in their infrastructure. So that was kind of my 5-minute kind of addition to the process management engine. David, is there anything else you wanted to kind of share in regards of Salesforce process automation flows, or any other tool that they have that kind of replicates, but maybe extends, maybe does not extend the functionality that we've already seen?
I would just, I want to make one clarification and then we can move on. I think we have to address, Alex, that there are, though you can get most anywhere with Salesforce. I mean, you might find that you're lurching into needing Apex. Let's put that aside. But I think we do need to talk about how the additions of Salesforce do affect how much of these tools you can make use of.
Absolutely. So
Can we do one? Can we do one? I just want to clarify though, because it might have been a misunderstanding. The filtering on Salesforce, even though I hard coded a particular opportunity, it's absolutely the case that dynamic filtering is available. I'm not sure if that was, if I made that clear. So
no, that was clear. I just kind of pointed out the whole way of configuring those filters, right? So David, I do fully agree that we need to have a discussion around different additions and pricing, right? As usually we do during these product battles. So at this point, let's probably stop the screen sharing. Let's get back to just a conversation between us on pricing limitations, hidden costs that are there, right? And I would like to first of all start with reiterating on the fact that in Creatio, there really are no limits on number of business processes that you might be configuring, right? There are no limitations on number of dynamic cases that you can be configuring. And definitely there's no limit on number of instances of those running within your applications, right? This is really not our goal to limit you in the, let's say, in your journey of automation for your organization, based just because we want to, convert you to a higher license or a higher price per license. Our goal is to provide you the best tool at the most affordable price possible to actually to enable you in running those automations and, bringing your organization to the next era, to the next stage. So, David, what would you say? How would Salesforce compare to that kind of philosophy and vision?
So it's different. Their commercial model is different, right? And when doing a compare and contrast, it's important to be aware that of the Salesforce editions, the essentials at $25 per user per month. That's that's very small, 5 users, and that's not what we're talking about, Alex, right? But there's professional, then there's enterprise, and then there's I think 2 other higher level developer and other large scale.
I think there's also unlimited.
Unlimited.
Is the highest edition for $300 per user per month.
The key is the difference between the professional and the enterprise. If you want to do more than a handful of automations, and I don't know exactly how they're tallied. Anybody could go out to the Salesforce page and they've got their licensing information, but let's call it, I think it's very fair to say, a handful of automations. If you want to do more than that, then you will have outgrown the professional edition of Salesforce. You'll need to move towards the enterprise edition of Salesforce. And that could be a large consideration for organizations that are looking not just for their CRM app, right? Their opportunity management that comes out of the box, but they're looking to do a fair amount of automations. If they need, here's a good example, if they need two different sales processes or sales paths, right, in an organization, it can be, as we said at the beginning, it can be absolutely positively done in Salesforce. But there's a few different items and permissions that you need to have access to for multiple processes, and those permissions are only available to you, granted to you, in enterprise. That's kind of the short answer. Okay. So
yeah, so basically what you're saying is that in order to have a clear and straightforward understanding of Salesforce pricing and limitations, you have to master in economics and finances to actually be able to put it together. And having a degree in law as well wouldn't be too much to actually put everything together, because this is only what is covering the limitations on the process automation, right? And we're not even talking about other tools and other modules that might be going with it, right? If you're looking to purchase or subscribe to for a marketing automation tool, Salesforce automation tool, service automation tool, and you're looking at all of those different editions and different versions and different modules, and then you also need to keep in mind the limitations that you might be having connected to process design and process automation. Your mind blows, and there's just too many variables you need to keep in mind. Whilst with Creatio, what we do offer is just very simple, very straightforward pricing model, no limitations connected to it. One limitation though on the amount of storage, but again, very transparent, right? It's same for data for the files, and also quite affordable to extend. But the idea here for us is, again, to follow this philosophy of giving full ownership over the application to our customers, right? To not have any limitations on configuration, to not have any limitations on the process automation. And of course, because of the package architecture of our application, it makes it very simple for us to run any kind of upgrades towards our platform, right? As you know, we follow a 5-week release schedule, right, where minor releases are being delivered every 5 weeks, every major releases every 3-4 months, a year. So there's really like continuous delivery of these new best of breed features and functionality to our users, right? And this really why so many customers, well, first of all of our customers are very happy with Creatio, because for a license subscription of $50 a month, right, for one user, which is already less than 75 for a professional edition of of Salesforce, which already has some limitations, right? We provide all of these great features. We provide continuous support, continuous upgrade towards those applications, right? Whereas in Salesforce, as far as I understand, not only we talk about certain tools that are available only at the Lightning edition that not even every customer has switched to, right? Or maybe even costs a certain amount of implementation, budgets to move to, right? To redo their implementation to actually be upgraded and have a different license subscription.
So Alex, I agreed. Let me try a rule of thumb so that people don't have to go get their PhDs in economics, okay? I'd say as a rule of thumb, look, there's lots of big organizations out there when they're evaluating a platform like Salesforce and the automation, they're looking at the whole app exchange vendor ecosystem, and maybe they're big, maybe they have a sales incentive comp system or a CPQ, configure price quote platform, right? And they're looking at everything coming together, and then they might want to start doing some math and figuring things out. But because they're already kind of predisposed to go to enterprise, they'll end up getting the workflow, right? So that kind of makes some sense, I think. In the mid market, I got to say that if you're looking at core CRM and then you want to do workflow, not just CRM workflow, any workflow, I got to say, the that which you can do with Creatio and its non-constraints on the workflow is really compelling, especially when folks start looking at the pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, David, we are 5 minutes till the end of the product battle, right? I would like to thank you for your time and for this very interesting conversation and comparison on such exciting, such very important topic as process automation, different approaches to automation in the applications, right? I would like to right now to maybe pause the voting on the two vendors. As far as you can see, the votes have been divided into 76% pro Creatio and 24% per pro Salesforce, which in my, again, humble opinion is not a surprising number, right? We do know that all of our customers and most of those people who evaluate Creatio Salesforce find our tools a lot more powerful, exciting, and easier to use than those that are provided by Salesforce. But I would like to again thank you, David, thank all of our viewers and attendees of this product battle for participation. Thank you for your votes. Thank you for your comments. I'm pretty sure that our product team has been helping you with answering those questions. Would like to as well announce that our next product battle is going to be happening in exactly 2 weeks at the same time on 30th of July, where we're again going to be comparing Creatio with Microsoft Dynamics on a very exciting topic, which you will hear from our newsletter, from my LinkedIn, from our website. And again, for any missed broadcasts, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link can be found in the chat area and on the broadcast page. And stay updated with the most recent, the hottest and most topical discussions in the CRM, low-code, BPM world that Creatio is leading, and stay connected. David, thank you again. Thank you very much. I hope to see you very soon. And thank you, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alex.